Hi, it's Pastor Sarah with this month's vlog, Faith at Home, Not Alone. And I'm excited to show you this interview I had with Kerri Gaskin-Fowler. She's a licensed counseling therapist. And I asked her some questions about parenting our children and digital media. And I think there are some great things that she shares with us. I do want to apologize. The quality of the internet wasn't great when we had the interview. So if you're having any difficulty catching everything that Kerri said, I'm going to put the link to the blog post where I transcribed our conversation, and you can read it all there. So take a listen, and I hope this is encouraging to you and also informative. So welcome, Kerri. Thank you for being part of this vlog for this month, and appreciate your background, and it's a licensed counseling therapist. Is that the title?
That's correct.
So I know, and you work a lot with children and with families, and so you have a lot of depth, and you're seeing probably a lot of what families are encountering just even day to day.
Indeed. And I'm a mom.
Yeah. So some of the parents were interested in finding out more about digital media and how does this affect our children? What are some good guidelines that we can have? So I just wanted to start off with that first question. How does digital media affect children? Does it have effects on them?
Sure. And it's important for us to understand that all media affects all people. But that in developing brains, and if we understand kind of the biology of the human brain, the prefrontal cortex, I'm going to be a little geeky here for a minute, which is that rational decision-making part of the brain, really isn't fully developed until we're about 25. Right? So the limbic system, which is the alarm system, the impulsivity part, is fully active, which is why young people tend to be impulsive and maybe take risks and so on. So if we start looking at digital media, and that can mean so many things. That can mean TikTok, it could mean texting, it could be Snapchat, it could be Roblox or Xbox with all the chat features. It could be TV and so on. When we look at how digital media really affects and influences our children, our teens, it's important to understand that those screens are everywhere, right? So they're constantly being inundated. And while digital media can be really beneficial in that we can be exposed to new ideas, new contexts, realms of information that we had to go to the library and haul out the Encyclopedia Britannica to find. I just made myself really old saying that. But those are some really positive things. We can have a greater awareness of current events, of world issues, of things that are happening. We can have a greater sense of community in some ways. We can work remotely with other kids in our class, right? Rather than having to be shipped around by parents to work together on a project. Those are some of the good things, right? We have those great exposures. But those negative side effects are, inadequate sleep. Right? We do know that blue light influences our sleep and our melatonin production. We know that it can lead to delays in language and social skills development, attention problems. There can be less time learning because of more time on screens, and there can be less time engaging in human interaction and understanding social norms because of it. So it does influence, it absolutely does, because it's out there all the time and everywhere. And in some of those influences can be very scary for parents. We talk about cyberbullying. We talk about online predators. We talk about sexting. All of these things that are dangerous, scary activities. And as parents, as guardians, as the care providers, we want to know what to do to keep our kids safe in this rapidly changing digital world.
You did outline that there's some positive aspects of social media and there's some negative. I'd heard that sometimes the more educational type things can be beneficial and don't give the same negative impact.
And I think that's that's a yes and no answer. Anything has, any educational piece has its value, so long as we are using it in moderation, right? So we talk about the physiological impact of just screen time, even an educational tool, even like Duolingo, where we're learning a new language, too much time on that is going to have a negative impact. So while it does have positive benefits, using a tool to learn a new language, or to learn how to cook, or to follow YouTube videos to rebuild, your dirt bike, those are really great tools, but too much time in those has those same impacts of, attention deficit, of sleep deficit, of disconnect from the world around us, from losing time with community, losing time with family, inadequate sleep schedules, because we then are, really into something and we look at that instead of sleeping. So those are some of the downsides, even of the educational pieces. And I'm not downplaying educational value of digital media, because it's really there. It gives us access, and we have to moderate.
Thank you. No, I think that's good to differentiate, because sometimes it's easy to think, oh well, this is educational, so I don't have to maybe monitor as much, or it's not going to have an impact. So yeah, no, I appreciate that.
I think about it as like when I was a little girl and I would be in my bed with a flashlight reading until 3 a.m., 4 a.m. That wasn't good for me, right? To be up all hours reading. It's no different in that regard.
Yeah. So just thinking as parents, what are some ways that we can be good role models with digital media? Like, what role do we have in this?
Oh, that's a hard one, right? Because as parents, we have our phones, right? We have our phones, we have our tablets, we have our Zoom calls, and everyone everywhere has a digital attachment, right? And parenting can feel a little bit harder because there's so much to keep up with, including monitoring our own use of media, right? And our kids are going to pick up on it. How many parents who are watching this or reading this are going to say, oh yeah, my kid has said to me, could you put your phone down, right? If we're taking our phone to the dinner table, our kids are picking up on this. If we're having a conversation with someone and instead of making eye contact, we're scrolling, our kids are going to pick up on that. If we never shut down or log off from our laptops, our desktops, our tablets, our kids are going to pick up on that. We are modeling the behavior. Children learn what they live. We are teaching them that irresponsible use of digital media is okay, right? Household technology rules, like everybody's phones go in the basket at dinner time. If we can create those kinds of behaviors in ourselves, our kids are going to pick up on those just the same as they would pick up on the poor behaviors. But it's hard.
Yeah. Now, do you know if are there recommendations for an age-appropriate time where maybe children should not have any exposure or very limited exposure to digital media? Is there a time frame that we should be thinking of?
There is a lot of speculation about what's appropriate. So some experts will tell you, not before 2 years old, of any variety. Some will say 18 months. And those who are saying 18 months or 2 years are really talking about music. They're talking about movement. So watching, I'm dating myself, but like the Wiggles, or something that gets a child moving and dancing, and that those be appropriate for like half an hour. So there are kind of concurrent age and time limits, but not before that kind of toddler age for sure. And then if you're talking about like social media, Snapchat, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, and so on, minimum 13.
Yeah, and why is that?
Partially because of the developmental needs, at 13, children are starting to develop independence. We say that children can babysit at this, at 12 years old. So they have a little more independence. We're giving them more opportunity to have responsibility. We can have better conversations with them about what is safe, what is unsafe, whereas someone who is maybe 8, 9, 10 may not have that same capacity for understanding safety and unsafe behaviors and unsafe interactions online. So this is kind of the bare minimum is 13. And every family will have kind of their own conversations about what's right for their family. Certainly our 13-year-old didn't have TikTok or Instagram or Facebook or any of those, but that's for our family. And everybody's family will have different expectations. But the bottom line is have the conversation, right? Have the conversation about it. Why do you want this? What is it going to look like if you do have social media? What are the rules around it? And one of those really good rules is the parents get to monitor. And that can feel really uncomfortable for both your teen and for you. What do you mean you're going to monitor my stuff? Well, this is where we have trust. We're trusting that you're not doing anything that you shouldn't be. And so every once in a while, we're going to check. We're going to have that check. And it's awkward and it's uncomfortable and it's important.
Yeah, some parents may be wrestling with that. Maybe they've already allowed things for earlier ages than are recommended. Do you think, like, once children have started, can you take them off and restart later? Or do you think once they've started, what would be kind of a good approach if you're kind of already
and that's a really great question, because it's, if your kid has been, YouTube Kids since they were 2 and you're like, okay, now we're done. Just like anything else that you suddenly take away with no conversation, that would be, now it's taboo and I'm really interested in it, right? Or, I've become, I don't want to use the word addicted, that's not quite the word, but I've become very attached to this media. And when you start to pull it away from me, I'm going to rebel a bit, or I'm going to have, I get those little dopamine bumps, those little serotonin boosts from the likes, from winning the games. Excuse me, sorry. And if you suddenly take that away from me, I no longer have that, so I'm going to seek it elsewhere. So we really need to be attentive to not just cutting any of it off completely, but having the conversation. This is why we're doing this. We're going to start to dial back the screen time. It's really important that we do that. Even with social media at like 13, no more than say half an hour of social media a day, because we really don't realize how much information is being loaded into developing brains in a 30-minute period. It's a lot of information. So titrate, right? Titrate into using the media and titrate off using the media to find that balance that works for your family.
Thank you. Yeah. So as we consider, our children are at an age where we can start to give them that, the freedom to go on to different forms of digital media. Now, you talked about, social media, the age of 13, and maybe after 2, some of the other maybe more educational or other things that we might want to expose them to. Are there any other maybe age appropriate things that you think we should consider for digital media?
I think that, obviously there is an element of knowing your own child, right? There are children and young youth who would be very good at a little bit of self-regulation and navigating the internet. And there are others who have less self-regulation and who are going to just explore. So having those conversations are not necessarily about a specific age, like 15, 16, 17, but about knowing your child. And in conversation, encouraging your child and teaching your child how to think critically, how to think about what they're seeing on the screen. Ask them to really think about, does this seem real or accurate? Is everything that's out there on the internet real and accurate? How do they know if something is trustworthy? Do they know what to look for? And really have those conversations that help your child, help your youth understand that media of any variety, although less so now, in parentheses there, is made by humans with opinions and perspectives and their own stuff. Now that we're seeing AI, we have a whole nother area to consider. But a lot of type of this technology made by people is designed to collect data. And so we need to have those conversations so that our young people can choose appropriately and with discernment, with a discernment that's appropriate to their age. So having said that, there are parental controls you can use on media, whether you're an Android or an Apple user or a PC or a Mac, there are controls. Those are appropriate. Parental controls are appropriate for age settings. And no matter how mature you believe your child to be, no matter how intelligent and discerning you believe your child to be, as the parent, as the caregiver, as the guardian, our role is to monitor their online and social media behavior. Kids will make mistakes, intentionally or unintentionally. They are learning. This is the time when we're learning and making mistakes. So we need to monitor that. We need to have those conversations. We need to guide, to manage, to bring up, right? And revisit those conversations as the child ages to really create that safe experience.
Yeah, thank you. Just a quick question. Do you know of any, because I know there are so many new platforms that are coming up, and each generation seems to have the ones that we prefer. Are there any that you would say, especially for children, thinking of children up to like middle school, even high school potentially, but especially in the earlier years, are there any apps or things that you think we should really try and keep them away from that altogether?
Sure, and I mean, my bias will certainly show here. I really do believe that young people should not be on TikTok and Instagram and Snapchat. Snapchat and TikTok in particular. Snapchat users believe that because they've loaded an image that it's gone. That's the premise. But anyone can screenshot. And so there is that danger there. And then part of the problem with Snapchat is streaks, which is that whole sending photos back and forth on continuing streaks. There is a social pressure to continue the streak. And then if that child, for some reason, doesn't send something to continue the streak, they can be ostracized by their peers, judged. So there's a lot of criticism that goes along with that. So there's that piece. TikTok, which was formerly called Musical.ly, has a lot of really dangerous information there. A lot of dangerous challenges. We don't need to dive into all of them, but they're around body image, about substance use, about sexuality, about relationships, and it's unfiltered, ill-advised, and often completely wrong information. And because these young brains are taking it in without that discernment of age and education and experience and maturity, it's dangerous. So I really do have some problems with TikTok.
Is there anything else that you would like to just maybe expand on or that we haven't covered that you think would be important to talk about?
I think one of the areas that some parents don't consider to be problematic is online gaming. Like, oh, my kid's playing Xbox or they're playing Roblox, whatever. But parents also need to remember that all of those online gaming platforms have a chat platform. And so while we think our kid is just playing a game, there's also a chat platform that leaves your child open to bullying, to predation, to luring. So it's something that we also need to be mindful of. And that even programs like YouTube Kids, which we think are okay, bad actors put in things that are scary, dangerous, designed to be harmful to children. and they post them on these platforms. So we can't just leave our kids to do these any more than we can turn our kids out into traffic to play. We need to monitor and check in and be aware for all of the things. It's about safety.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much, Kerri. Yeah, I know I learned a lot, and it's one of those things that I think we'll just have. It's here to stay, and it's going to be part of our children's lives, and we just need to be aware of it. And yeah, I appreciate you talking about how we need to keep the conversation going with our children, to not just kind of say yes or no to things, but actually talk to them a bit about the why behind that.
Yeah. Well, thanks for having me, Sarah.